worst thing in a lot of senses that I experienced was I had to remove a guy from line just one time.
Yeah.
One time.
Yeah.
And he was just a drunk jackass. He had to be removed. Like, we were not going to let him get entry to the actual maze and harass most of like middle school and high school actors. Like, this guy's got to go. And it was not a fun experience because I was actually working the first haunt.
Okay.
I wasn't working the queue line that night. I was working the first haunt, and it was like this was Circus Sinister, so the first room was like kind of like the big top. We had like this audience of mannequins. It was a fun room to work. You could attack from different points, and the girl working the door, and our chairperson kept coming in like, there's this guy in line. He's being a problem.
Yeah. And
I'm like, of course I got to deal with it.
Yeah.
So again, probably 3 different times they come in. So one time I kind of stood out there and just stared at him like, come on, buddy, get the point.
Right.
Just wasn't getting it.
Yeah.
So eventually I tell the girl at the door, who was probably like, I don't know, maybe 17. And I was like, all right, go work the first room. I'm going to work the door. So I'm watching this guy. And at this point, like, he is angering everyone else in line. And I'm like, man, it ain't the people around him in danger. He's in danger.
Right.
Which the fool didn't realize. Like, that's the thing. Like, man, like, you were lucky you walked out of there.
Yeah.
You're lucky myself and a few of the other employees did what we did.
Right.
Because you were about to be stomped.
Yeah.
So I go over there. This was the one and only time I ever broke character, and to this day I'm still angry about it. I was like, why? Why did I could have stayed in character and fought him.
There's always a way, right?
So I go over there, and at first I was in character. I was playing my Gherkin's character, and if you've never seen that character, he has this high voice. Talks a little like, let's all calm down, folks. I went over there. I was like, now let's play nice.
Yeah.
I was trying. Guy shoves me. I let him have one shove.
Yeah.
I step back in. I again try and quell the situation.
Right.
He shoves me again. And at that point, I was like, we're done.
Yeah.
And still, I'm not proud of it. I totally dropped the act. Yeah. I looked right at him, gave him some few choice expletives, and told him to get out of the building.
Yeah.
And he wanted to fight. There is footage of this. It had to be submitted to the police.
Yeah.
He took a number of swings, and then as we worked him out of what we called Haunt Zero, which is where our queue line was. There's kind of a choke point, a narrow passage between the ticket booth and the security room. Okay. And it's also much darker in that area.
Yeah.
And as we were in there, he swung and he caught me with a punch, like in my upper lip and my nose.
Okay.
And so as we worked him out to the lobby, it was one of those situations where I had to remind myself that I had children and I was not going to jail for this idiot.
Yeah.
He was so drunk. My mind went back to my fandom of professional wrestling. And I remember actually having the thought, like, I could hit him with Sweet Chin Music square in the face and put him out. That's how drunk he was.
That was pretty bad.
But eventually we got him outside, and he was put in a front face lock. There's video of this, too. The cops came and arrested him.
Yeah.
The thing that always stood out to me, I was wearing a rainbow top hat. It stayed on through this entire altercation. I remember thinking afterwards, how did that stay on? Yeah. That was the worst thing I had to deal with.
Yeah. We luckily haven't had to deal with too much. I'll knock on wood here, and most of the time, if there's people in line and it's like they're already a problem, you know that once their group is secluded and they think that they're not being watched, the problems escalate even further. So most of the time you can kind of catch those at the door, and for second room you can boot them if you need to.
Yeah, we did a lot of follow-throughs on those groups, and if they were particularly obnoxious, we just let them know.
Right.
I mean, I remember a few times going through and literally, I was in character, but I'd be like, keep it moving, they were just, there was nights of like a zombie pub crawl. We get a lot of drunk people.
Right.
And most of them were harmless. They were just out for a good time. But it's like when you're stopping and you're, maybe ogling the actresses a little too long.
Yeah.
You got to be move it along.
Yep.
That was there was a number of times in the queue line where it was evident to me that there was at least one person in the group who wasn't enjoying it like everyone else in the group was, and was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And you could read the body language, and I I could never just like drop it with them. I'd be like, no, I'm gonna still include you. I'm gonna try and make you understand that it's a show.
Right.
And sometimes people, the group would turn on their own friend and be like, that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're at 100. What's your problem?
Right.
And then I just play off of them. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, loosen up, pal.
Yeah.
Good time. There was, oh man. You remember the first Bloodlust in 2020?
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So, I had this whole routine. You may remember it. It involved a Kobe Bryant joke who had recently passed.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the crowd loved it.
Most?
This one guy, not so much. What he particularly took offense to, okay, you're working a queue line. I'm always looking at, like, the group dynamic. How many people are in the group? What's the complexion of the group? 2 guys, 2 girls? Okay, probably a pair of couples, friends. Sometimes, though, you misread a group.
Yeah.
So there's this guy, and he was one of the last people of the night. Big guy, too.
Yeah.
Not a guy I wanted to have to fight, but I was like, well, if I got to, I got to. I was playing a new character that night.
Okay.
Highly obnoxious, I was told by others.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
And when I told the Kobe joke, he was taller than everyone in the room. So I remember seeing him from the platform I was on.
Yeah.
His jaw dropped, not in amusement. It was shock and revulsion. I remember I was like, I'm going to toy with him later.
Yeah.
Well, I had this pink fanny pack on.
Okay.
And I was pulling, it was Valentine's Day. It was Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So I'm pulling out these little tubes I have, and I'm saying they're my love potions. They do different things.
Yeah.
So this gent, he's got 2 ladies with him.
Yeah.
And I'm up on my platform kind of leaning over to him, which put us at like eye level with each other.
Yeah.
So that was helpful. Yeah. And I was like, oh, 2 ladies tonight, huh? And he's just like, mm-hmm. Like, he wasn't terribly amused, but he was going along for a bit. So I open the fanny pack. I pull out one of my tubes of, it was like red, blue, green liquid.
Okay, yeah.
It was food coloring and water.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you're going to need a special potion for stamina. Well, turned out it was his daughter and her friend.
Oh, gosh.
Which he informed me of, and instantly my brain was like, "Oh God!" But I had to save it. What could I do?
Right.
Like, I'm not going to break character, so I just kept going. And he turns to me and he goes, "You know what your problem is?" At this point, he's angry.
Yeah.
He's like, "You don't know when to, shut the F up." And I was just like, "Oh, he's pissed now."
Yeah.
But even still, I couldn't stop. And I just looked at him. And I go, oh, that's what my mother in principal used to tell me. And I was waiting. I was like, he's going to swing at me.
Yeah.
Then the rest of the time he was in line, running his mouth. Like, he really wanted to fight. He kept saying, he's like, you're lucky your people are here. You're lucky. I was like, dude, you know how quick the cops will be here? I was like, you're lucky. You don't know it, but you're the lucky one right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he and his daughter and her friend, not his dates, as it turned out. In my defense...
He should have said that from the get-go.
Yeah, you should have told me, buddy. It was low lighting. He looked younger than what he was.
Okay.
They were plausibly 20.
You're right.
I'm just trying to read the group to have some banter with them,
right.
and I guessed wrong.
Yeah. That happens.
Have you had any interactions where you thought, "Oh, this might turn into a fight"?
Nothing where it's escalated that far. I've been hit several times acting in the attraction. There's been a couple times too, or one time specifically where there was a younger girl who was, obviously scared, but it wasn't the reaction punch. It was, she's scared, I'm going to wind up and hit you. And she did, and it was one of the get the heck out of here. Luckily, we were right by a door kind of thing. And it was like, you could just tell the group was a little bit too rowdy to begin with. And it wasn't the whole group, but there were like maybe 2 in like a group of 5.
Yeah.
And it was, it was getting chaotic. So she was kind of in a corner near an emergency exit. And I was there to kind of, hey, settle it down. And that's when she swung. And I was like, all right, you're done.
Where'd she connect with the punch?
I was wearing I was thrown into the attraction to replace somebody or something, so I just had on like this hard plastic mask, thankfully, but no, it was right to the face.
Right to the face?
Yeah. Her hand probably got the worst of it because it was one of the, just a cheap, hard plastic mask.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't.
The first year that I did Vermin.
Yeah.
Vermin was the character that I got myself in the most situations with.
Okay.
Because he was a very visceral character. He was, there was the underpinnings of he was a serial killer, a psychopath.
Right. Yeah.
So I did like a lot of mind games, a lot of psychological stuff. Customers didn't know it, but to amuse myself, I worked in a lot of real life problems and would tell it to their face.
Right. And
which always
go a long way to
I got sick
add
amusement
realism
to
the character.
Well,
more layers.
I think it was a Sunday night. It was somewhat slow, so whenever I had the chance, I'd sneak into one of the rooms, like come up with like a combo scare with one of the actors. Well, this was 2016. The theme was sin, so it was all serial killers. And in the H.H. Holmes room, there was a bed, full-size bed, and I could get myself underneath it.
Okay.
So this one large group, we broke them up into two groups, but then they combined as one. Like 11 people. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I come crawling out from underneath the bed, and the whole group just loses it. Yeah. So I've got the long hair. If you've had the good fortune to never see me, got the long hair in front of my face. And I'm crawling from underneath this bed, and they didn't expect that.
Right.
Well, there was one kid in the group, and I remember his name to this day because they all kept saying it. They all kept calling him Little Tracy. So I came up from underneath that bed, and I went straight for Little Tracy. And this kid, he was probably 9 years old.
Oh, jeez.
He starts swinging for all he's worth.
Yeah.
And I actually, just speaks to whatever particular mental illness I have. I'm leaning into the punches and bobbing and weaving and encouraging him. I was like, "Come on, Little Tracy, you can do better." God. It was funny as hell. Yeah. It was, but I didn't feel like he was doing it maliciously. He was reacting. He was scared.
Yeah.
And he had this nut job playing to it.
Right.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, so halfway to Halloween, once again, May 9th and 10th, Deranged and Romulus. The website is derangedhaunt.com.
That's correct.
Let's not too much, but let's look a little bit ahead to the haunt season. Can you give us a little kernel of what people may expect in the fall?
There will be changes to the attraction, as always. We're always updating it. We kind of look at it as a living and breathing thing.
Yeah.
This haunt is never going to be done. It's never, this is our haunt and that's it.
Yeah.
So we're always making changes. Storyline-wise, the blood sacrifice is happening halfway to Halloween, allegedly. We'll see if it all goes through. And I don't want to give away too much storyline-wise past that point. Because at halfway to Halloween, you can find out.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about, because you had told me about this previously, is there any chance we see Greeno's idea of an alien night come to fruition?
Currently, there are no plans of an alien night. That could happen. I wouldn't rule it out. But yeah, we do our Sunday theme nights throughout the main season.
Yeah.
This year, I think we have a few less. Maybe one or two less. We're kind of doing it every other Sunday to just see how it goes. But we got our Dark Woods event to end up the season. We also have our Clown Carnage, and then Classic Monsters.
Yeah, and if you're a smaller haunt, mid-sized haunt, and you can pull that off, you feel like you have the actors to pull that off, as a customer, that's about the only thing that might lure me back.
Right.
That, or maybe back in the day, when Darkside Acres did their Adults Night or 18 and up.
Yeah, we have one of those as well.
That would get me back out.
Yes, yeah.
You saw some interesting things there.
Yeah, things change a little bit when there's no kids around, that's for sure.
That's definitely for sure.
Yeah, we do one of those every year, and it's an actor favorite as well as a personal favorite, because they kind of just get, let loose.
Oh, that's right. Well, I acted the second one.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I definitely let loose a bit.
Yeah. So this year we just have the 118 and up night, and we're running it on a Thursday this year. A little bit of an experiment there, but unfortunately, every time we run it on a Sunday, there's quite a few kids that show up thinking they're just going to a haunted house. We're like, it's on the flyer, it's on the website, it's on the Facebook, it's on the Instagram, 18 and up, and like, you're 8, not 18. You always get a handful of kids. They're like 16, 17 in high school. We're like, we're 18, but we forgot our ID.
So you turn them away?
Yeah, they get turned away. Yeah, because our 18 up nights are 18 and up nights. Because the last thing we want is a 16-year-old coming in and going home and been telling his parents what he did tonight and what he saw at this haunted attraction. And we do not want that. So our 18 and up nights are 18 and up nights, but we always have our kids trick or treat as well throughout the week for like the younger kids.
Right.
We run into those every year as well.
And that's fully G-rated.
Yes, that's completely G-rated. There's no scares involved unless we forget to turn something off. But aside from that, yeah, no actors. Just walk through the trail, collect some candy, and get to see everything with the lights on.
Now, one of your actors, not even in costume one bit, did frighten my child, my 2.5-year-old last fall.
It's very possible.
Just with his face. Quite an achievement.
Yeah, I mean, some of our actors have that awful look to them.
So if it's piqued your interest at all, some of these 18 and up nights, you can go to the Horrorlust blog. You can read them and do a little reading between the lines. Use your imagination, and you get a little flavor of what went on.
Yeah.
One note on the Horrorlust blog. So if you want to visit it, I've now returned to the original blog.
Okay.
So the URL is horrorlust.wordpress.com.
Oh, awesome. Very cool.
I still have the domain.
Yeah.
And I had, about 5 years ago, I had updated it and built a new website. I never really cared for some of the functionality of the new website. And then I lost the website.
Okay.
And had not just a minor freak out. I was pretty distressed.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, wait, the old site's still there. So everything December 2020 was still there.
Okay.
And then I went through and I was like cataloging everything that I possibly lost.
Right.
I was able to get back everything of importance. There were a few like out of season posts that I could not recover. Used the Wayback Machine to get most of it back.
Yeah.
And the first one I recovered, one of the things that was most important to me, a lot of times on Halloween, I will make a post, not even about where I might be going. It's just just a nostalgic Halloween post.
Cool. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite ones to write. And on Halloween 2021, that was the last night of not only Circus Sinister, but that was the last night the Wine at JC's ran a haunted house.
Yeah.
And this was an organization that ran a haunted house for 45 years.
Wow.
So there was a lot of emotion wrapped up in it. And I wrote a post from that night, and part of the post was touching on the fact that, well, part of the reason I knew I was stepping away after that season was I was about to be a dad again, and I was like, this is gonna be too difficult with 2 kids, and I'm, it's getting into my late 30s at this point. I'm like, I can remember that Halloween running full bore into a wall with my shoulder, and then going, you can't keep doing this stuff like this.
Yeah.
So it was a very emotional post, kind of about like having to hang it up at least for a time, and then with the chapter not running the project anymore, I lost that post.
Oh, jeez.
And the very sort of poetic way that I got it back was that Tom, who ran Zyoptist for years, who was doing this stuff before I was even born.
Yeah.
I used to read his site a lot, and I actually was just on his site one day, depressed, because I'm like, how am I going to recover all these posts? And I was actually just seeing like if he had posted anything about the upcoming season. Yeah. And so I'm digging through stuff, and then boom, there's that post that I'd written. Yeah. He had taken it. He would sometimes comment on some of my posts. He's like, "Oh, Joel over at Horrorlust." Yeah. And it stopped. It was another moment. It stopped me in my tracks. I was like, "Oh my god." Yeah. Then I found out not long after that he'd actually passed away that previous spring. Mm-hmm. So I was like, dude literally sent me a message from beyond the grave and saved that post for me. Right. I was so appreciative, and I met him on a few occasions. Yeah. That was, I mean, like, we all die. Yeah. I think we all probably know an actor or somebody in the industry that passed away, but I remember last fall, I thought it was real odd he wasn't posting in September. Yeah. Because he even like followed some off-season events that weren't haunt related. Yeah. Like light shows, concerts. Yep. Then as it got to October, I was like, no, something's wrong. Yeah. And I remember thinking, I was like, he's either sick. Yeah. Or he's passed away. Right. So then I started doing some internet digging, and I found his obituary. And I was like, oh, this is such it was. Yeah. Fun guy. I mean, he was doing this stuff like back in like the 70s. Oh yeah. Yeah. So that was one of the first haunted house blogs I knew of and like would read religiously. Right. So yeah, I mean, I wrote a post about that.
Is that site still up? Is this Ioptis site?
So in some of the digging, myself and John did.
Yeah.
No, I believe it was set to expire in December.
Yeah.
I saved all the pages.
Yeah.
I
I was going to say, I was hoping that it's documented somewhere because, I mean, the amount of...
I did save them.
Basically his life's work with the amount of haunted attractions he reviewed over the years,
and,
you know?
There was a few times through email I approached him and I was like, it's you got to approach these things, like with some sort of tact.
Yeah.
Because we're like, hey, I notice you're old.
Yeah, right.
But I was just like, hey, Tom, if I was like, I'm interested, like he used to do a voice recording.
Yes.
Every haunt he went to, he had decades of these things. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know, I'm sure they're on all sorts of different formats. I'm like,
probably.
We should collaborate to preserve these. I'm like, and once you're not here anymore, I'm like, I'll keep them alive at Horrorlust. Yeah. And at some point I will pass that on to some other kid 30 years from now, hopefully.
Yeah.
And I never got a response from him, and that was the first thing I thought about when I learned he passed. I was like, all his recordings.
Right. Yeah, because I remember he came through our very first year, too. One of the few.
He got everywhere.
Yeah.
He was cool to talk to. He loved haunted attractions.
Yeah. I don't think I ever really got to sit down and have a conversation with him or even talk to him at the attraction because the few times he was out, I was stuck in the show for one reason or another, so I never really got to get the full experience.
I talked entirely in character with him after he went through the haunt.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, he's seen my act in the queue line. I'm not.
Right.
I'll just keep it up.
Yeah, and especially somebody that's reviewing haunts. You don't be like, oh, well. Right. Yeah, and then he hopped out of character right afterwards to talk to me.
But at that point, I was just like, I'm using the vermin voice, but I'm like, oh, you got a card on you.
Yeah.
He probably like, man, this guy's he's not going to stop.
Yeah.
But no, always tough to lose people like that.
Yeah.
But all right, so no aliens on.
No, on not on the docket for this year, but
I'm trying for you, Adam.
Yeah.
I'm pushing.
We're always doing different stuff, and I feel like that would be something that we would take a whole weekend for. So maybe that's future halfway kind of idea.
Okay.
Something where we could really dive into it, because I feel like just one night for an alien show. There's a lot of changes that have to happen for those nights where it's if you're doing a clown night, it's a little easier to integrate clowns everywhere or classic monsters everywhere. It's we don't have Camp Crystal Lake, but we have Camp Zika and Lake Zika, where it's a Jason character can kind of work out here. And we have several clown characters that are classic monsters we can work in. And, I mean, we're heavily inspired by, horrors of the past and movies of the past. So there's little elements here and there that you might not walk through and go, oh, that's from that movie. Yeah. But if it's a classic monsters night, Ghostface works here. No problem.
When I came through on Classic Monsters Night last year, I don't know who the actor was playing Freddy Krueger, but they surprised me with an unexpected snarky and profanity laced line. I was like, nice.
Right. Yeah.
See, I think the alien, I get what you're saying from a practical standpoint, but if I saw it as a theme night, I'd be like, oh, I'm going.
Right.
Because there's going to be a probing, there's going to be some simulated abduction.
Right.
I got to see this.
Yeah. No, it would be a lot of fun to do, and it's definitely something that's on the back burner, because it's just it would require a lot of work to change everything over, because if we do it, we want to do it to the best of our ability.
Right.
And it would take more than, hey, we're open regular Saturday night, and then Sunday night we're doing a completely different show with aliens, where it's we're doing something maybe based around a future halfway to Halloween event, where we have the whole spring to kind of alter the attraction to it. That might be a perfect fit.
I'm going to team up with Greeno now. Yeah. We'll just be in your ear over the year.
Over the aliens,
right? Yeah. We're going to do this. All right, so before we wrap up here, now there is there's several haunts running, not just that weekend, but various weekends.
Yeah, there's been a handful.
Yeah, and there's also, but that weekend on May 10th, there's the Halfway to Halloween Expo out in Ann Arbor.
Yep.
That runs, if you're interested, that runs from, I believe, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yes.
So you don't even have to forfeit going to any haunts.
Correct.
You can hit that during the day. There's all sorts of vendors, food trucks, spooky merchandise. There's even going to be a miniature haunted house there.
Yeah.
A lot of cool stuff. I'm hoping to get out there myself, trying to once again call in some people for childcare so that I can have a day to myself.
Yep.
Hey, can you watch the kids again? Are you going to work? No, I'm just going to look at spooky stuff.
Yeah, it's a great event for all ages. The expo is. Yeah. I mean, we've been able to contribute to their haunted attraction element to it for the last couple of years, and we'll be back again this year. And it's a lot of fun, and they have a ton of vendors with a little bit of everything and great food trucks and the whole deal.
Yeah, and if you're interested in that event, they too have a website. Just Google Halfway to Halloween, Michigan.
Yes.
It'll pop right up. And one more time, Mike, plug your event.
Yeah, Deranged Haunts Halfway to Halloween event, May 9th, May 10th. We'll be open.
And if you've got any question, comments, or you want to ask me questions, ridicule me, that's fine. I just like reading stuff. You can send all that to horrorlust31@gmail.com. Once again, that's horrorlust31@gmail.com. Or if you happen to see this posted on any social media platform, post something in the comments, send me a DM, whatever. And one final plug I'm going to do, and this is for a good friend of mine. Recently published a novel entitled The Names. I want to get the name. There's like a subtitle. The Names is it a modern epic gothic horror or epic modern gothic horror? One or the other. I always confuse it. But The Names. Author's name is Michael Ann McGorman. It is a dense read, but a quick read. A very, I thought, captivating horror story, obviously, that's why I'm plugging it here. There is a 2-part interview with the author up on Horrorlust as we speak. Part 1 released last week. Part 2 is coming out tonight. So I encourage you to go pick up a copy of that book. Good friend of mine. It's available on Amazon. If you're into horror, I think you will enjoy it. If you like reading scary stories, you're going to like it. I was highly impressed. She worked on this book for 6 years.
Wow.
Very proud of her when she got that published. So once again, The Names by Michael Ann McGorman on Amazon. Go check out the interviews on Horrorlust. And if you've never heard of Horrorlust before,
missing out.
Welcome.
Yeah, right.
There's all sorts of haunted house reviews on the site that I started in 2011. There are interviews with haunted house owners from over the years. There are just my personal thoughts and reflections and musings on Halloween and haunted attractions and horror movies. I have a lot of fun writing it, and I know some people at least have fun reading it.
Yes.
So, one more time, derangedhaunt.com. Come out for Halfway to Halloween. Witness the blood sacrifice by Victor Calloway and his cult minions.
Yep, lurking throughout the woods.
On May 9th and 10th. Mike, thanks for joining me today. We should do this more often than once a decade.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to come back anytime.
This was a good time.
Yeah.